All right, well, thanks, folks, for joining. I'm looking forward to today's conversation because it comes at a time when we are launching a new initiative called Flow, which is going to help with data sharing in our supply chain. A lot of data that you might assume is already being shared between different players in different parts of the supply chain as you think about ports, terminal operators, truckers, warehouses, railroads, customers. It's actually not automatic. So we're bringing people together to try to make more of it happen. And I think a great conversation that we can have today to shed a little bit of light on how that works is with our guest right now, Jennifer McNeil from True Value. As VP of Logistics, let me start, Jennifer, by just asking you to describe your business a little bit and why supply chains are so important to an organization like True Value.
Sure. So True Value really serves our customers. Our customers are more than 5,000 independently owned hardware retailers around the country. They are small business owners and they serve the communities that they operate in. So supply chain is very important to us as a company and very important to our customers, as our ability to move product to our customers affects not only the retailers, but the communities that they serve.
That's right. A lot of people are in turn counting on the stores that you serve, which means the ability to get things where they need to be when they need to be there is hugely important.
Absolutely.
So what does it mean for your customers and for your organization for us to be able to better share data and better track shipments or understand what is at what point in the system?
So this can be a huge help to our customers, and this can be a huge help to the communities that our customers serve. These supply chain disruptions have had many impacts on our customers, and through the course of the pandemic have meant different things at different times. Our ability to share data, our ability to solve some of these supply chain bottlenecks and deliver product to our customers quicker, more efficiently, and more predictably will certainly help us bring down costs and satisfy the needs of these communities that we're operating in.
And that speaks to part of what's at stake right now when it comes to getting supply chains right. We're in a season where we're battling inflation. We know how folks are being impacted by things like the conflict in Russia that's affecting supply chains, driving inflation, gas prices, and more. So anything that we can do to make supply chains flow more smoothly, that's affecting folks' bottom line, right? Family budgets, the ability to do projects, the difference between being able to take a vacation or not. I mean, these are all the kinds of things that depend on us getting this right.
Absolutely. Some of our store owners have significant challenges as we try to navigate these supply chain disruptions. We're asking them to do things like order product a year in advance of the traditional season. Wow. This is especially difficult for small business owners. They don't have the ability to store or order in bulk. They don't have the ability to forecast like some of the larger companies. So these are significant issues for True Value, and these are significant issues for our customers.
Yeah, what are some of the ways you think the current supply chain environment is harder for small businesses? Because you're in a very interesting position. You're a nationwide organization and network, but of course, the stores you work with are typically independent, often in rural areas. Small business doesn't have the kind of command of supply chain that a big box store might, for example.
Sure. So we have some unique challenges, and we have challenges that are shared by all companies that are importing into the United States. We're moving product to a variety of locations, but we're often moving products in smaller quantities. So our ability to consolidate and our ability to move product efficiently is critical as we're breaking up that product and delivering in the quantities that are needed for our customers to their retail locations. As you mentioned, many of our customers are in rural locations and not necessarily in the big cities. So the distance that the product has to travel once it arrives in a U.S. port is usually significant. So our ability to do that efficiently and in a cost-effective manner is of paramount importance to our customers.
And that flows through, as you said, into communities. I know definitely my in-laws, just to take one example, they're really counting on their hardware store in northern Michigan to be there for them, to be able to run their own small business. And you see how that kind of flows out through so many businesses, families, and communities. Well, we're really excited about what we can do with this data sharing initiative, precisely because we think it's going to help things get to where they need to be on time. I was just at a conversation earlier today at the White House. I know a colleague of yours was there, as well as representatives from a number of shippers, warehousing organizations, ports, all talking about what we can do to better share information. And a big part of it is just making sure that you have some visibility in terms of where the things that you're counting on are actually sitting. What's it going to take to make the logistics of it work better? And ultimately, it's going to add up, I think, into a digital tool that different participants, starting with these 18 organizations that signed up today, including yours, are going to be able to get access to. So we think this is going to really help solve a lot of problems at a time when we need to do everything we can to unstick every bottleneck in that supply chain and the networks of supply chains that are ultimately mostly in private hands. They're private sector, right? A lot of folks forget sometimes that as it should be, these are not government owned and operated supply chains for the most part, certainly not federally owned and operated. But all the more reason for us to be trying to set the table to get the relevant players to be speaking with each other, sharing information, and helping each other solve these problems.
Yes, we're really honored and excited to be a part of this data sharing initiative. We think it's a great opportunity to improve the supply chain, and we're hopeful that our experiences through the past 2 years will provide some valuable input to what companies are facing today and to what challenges we can solve by working together.
Well, what are some of the biggest things you think will have to happen to shorten that lead time? I mean, you mentioned having to tell customers to order things a year in advance, and obviously that's pretty tough to make those plans with that much advance warning. So what are the biggest things you think need to happen to get us to a smoother, nimbler, more resilient path?
So I think consistency will be the key in this. Maybe not necessarily speed, but consistency. If we have the visibility into when things are coming, we can plan equipment properly in our ports, plan labor properly in our ports, plan truck driver capacity appropriately, rail car availability appropriately, and to move products through our country consistently. It will help all of the companies that are engaged in the global supply chain. We will continue to see spikes in volume. We will continue to see bottlenecks that occur around the world, but our ability to consistently see what's coming at us will help us manage the flow by managing the labor and the equipment that needs to be in place at each point in the supply chain to keep the goods moving.
So what I hear you say is not that we're going to try to eliminate uncertainty or eliminate the ups and downs. It's just being better prepared for them, right? And being a little more resilient. And I think that's smart, because we're in a moment where we don't know what the next curveballs are going to be, right? Economically or logistically. I mean, who would have thought just in the last 2 years, a pandemic, a war overseas, climate-related natural disasters are increasing in frequency, and they can hit any time. Definitely a year ago, a lot of heads were turned when we were seeing ice and snow in Texas. And we just don't know what the next thing is, either locally or nationally or internationally, that's going to throw us. So all the more reason why, when a curveball is coming, we need to be positioned to adapt and manage it, which it sounds like is very much what you do for a living in a lot of different ways.
It is. And I think your choice of words and being nimble in the supply chain is spot on, right? That is what we all strive to be. And as we think about the things that are occurring in the world, as we think about continued COVID outbreaks, as we think about conflicts in Europe currently, these are all things that we don't have a good, we don't have the ability to really predict in advance, but we are required to react to them. We are required to manage our supply chains and to make necessary adjustments to keep our product flowing. So being nimble and having visibility to what's coming before it gets here is critical to being able to do that.
So as somebody who works in logistics, I'm just curious, what's it been like with friends or family in the last in the last couple of years as supply chains have suddenly become a household term? Because I know I definitely didn't hear a lot of folks outside of the world of transportation or these businesses throwing around words like supply chain up until 2 years ago. Now it feels like very much a kitchen table issue. And us transportation geeks might think that it should always be a kitchen table issue. But have you noticed a change in the way people who've maybe known you for years don't know that much about what you do all day? Maybe you're asking different, more informed questions or more attuned to what it is that you do and work on?
So I have noticed a shift. I agree. Us transportation geeks do believe this should be a topic of conversation right. At all times. But yeah, it's affected my family, and it's affected the community I live in. It's affected the customers for the company that I work for, and so many people are interested in knowing why, right? And why can't it be fixed, right? If you can describe the problem, why can't you fix it? It's interesting to explain the complexities of the global supply chain to people who don't work in the area. I think sometimes it's eye-opening, but it's absolutely become a more, I would say, frequent topic of conversation as we in our daily lives as consumers see things that aren't in stock, or we see rising prices for things that we want, or we see extended lead times for things that we're ordering. It's interesting to help explain to people who don't work in our area why these things are occurring and why the solution to going back to normal, quote unquote, is not necessarily something that's simple.
Yeah, there are a lot of assumptions doing a lot of work, right? Things that folks might just assume. Certainly we're finding this in terms of the Flow initiative, that you might expect certain kind of data were being shared, but it just doesn't work that way. I think a lot of folks assume that our ports all operated on a 24/7 basis, which of course they haven't, though we've been shifting them onto that posture, and I think that's been really important. Are there any other things you think people assume is true about logistics or about supply chains that's just pretty wide of the mark?
I think assumptions really are that capacity is abundant, and that if you have product to move from point A to point B, regardless of where those points are in the world, it's a fairly straightforward task to do that. Sometimes that is the case, sometimes it's not. To your point, our ports do not work 24/7. They do work more hours, I think, than people know. And the challenges in getting them to work 24/7 are quite significant. The solutions to some of these problems seem apparent to people who don't work in the supply chain area. But as mentioned, they definitely are more complex.
And that's exactly why it takes so many players at the table in order to find solutions, right? And that's federal, state, local, but it's mostly outside of government. A lot of private sector players, which is why we're so glad for the partnership here. Well, Jennifer, thanks for taking time to help explain these issues, and thanks again to True Value for being among the 18 inaugural members of the Flow Initiative. I'm really excited about what we can do here to simplify shipping, to reduce wait times, and of course, ultimately to keep prices under control. So the work is just beginning, and we're glad to be partnering with you to do it.
Thank you very much. We're very excited to be part of this initiative.
Great being with you, and take care.
You too. Have a good afternoon.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thank you.